All right, let's get on to the topic that appears to be everybody's favorite topic here in our county and also, of course, in Olympia, and that's the CRC, the Columbia River Project. Let me ask the sort of the big question up front and then uh, some follow-up questions on it. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being this thing is a lock, it's going to get passed in the form that it is being presently presented in the state senate, with a 1 being this thing is dead in the water. On that scale, where is this in your view?
In my view, I think it's about at a 4.
Oh, okay, so you still think that there is some possibility,
I
some.
think there's always some possibility. We always joke in Olympia about people say, oh, that bill's dead. And what we find is until after the end of the second session, uh, the bill's not really ever dead. They come back to life like little zombies. So no, I don't think so. And I think it'll be in the. I've heard what both Senator Cleveland and Representative Mueller and also Representative Wiley have said about it's not over till it's over. Um, so
Okay, that's fair, but would it also be fair to say that you're confident that it won't go through in its present form?
I don't think it will. No,
Okay,
not as it presently is. No.
okay. One of the reasons, of course, that you don't believe it will go through is because of the coalition that has been put together with both the Republicans and a few Democrats
Mm-hmm.
who have created a coalition. Um, do you, I'm assuming you're keeping sort of regular tabs on this. Do you see any cracks or fissures in that coalition as it is right now?
No, no, um, we are very like-minded on this. If I can just, I listen to Colin Cowherd on sports radio. I think he's great, and he said something once a long time ago that made a lot of sense to me, and it's a filter that I use on a regular basis, and that is this: say it out loud. And as an example, completely hypothetical, I come home to my husband and I say, I'm going to go out, I'm going to do all this stuff today. But on the way, I stop and I have lunch with an old boyfriend. I don't tell him that. Why? Because I can't say it out loud because I know there's something inherently wrong with it. So that's the way it is with this project. When you say all of the things, and you made reference to some of them in your ugly baby column, when you say it out loud, it just it's hard to keep a straight face. It doesn't pass the straight face test. And so, um, someone asked me once, are you lobbying your fellow senators?" And I say, "I don't have to. I just say it out loud," and they go, "What? No, we're not doing that." Um, so I do. We talk about it in caucus on a fairly regular basis, and no one appears to be moving. And Lou, the reality is that it's not just our project. There are transportation issues occurring all around the state that do lend themselves to a certain degree of cynicism. And so, this idea that we're only tolling the 520, oh, but now our tolling revenue is significantly lower on the 520 than we thought it was going to be, so now we got to toll the 90. Well, wait a minute, you told us we weren't going to have to toll the 90. You told us we weren't going to have to toll the 205. But the reality is, and so I think that there's a lot of cynicism, and and the legislators are experiencing it in their own neck of the woods. So when they see the CRC, it's just another thing that adds to the cynicism. And likewise, the 520 and the tunnel, the deep bore tunnel, the north-south freeway, the new Columbia River crossing and Tri-Cities that they're talking about, all of these things, when you look at the whole picture, that's when I discussed earlier about looking at things in the Senate, and I don't have time to worry about commissioner stuff. when you look at the whole picture, a statewide picture, my first commitment is to the people in my district, and then to the people in my region, and then to the people of this state. And when we take that approach, you just scratch your head and you say, oh my gosh, really? What are we doing here? We need to pull back and we need to rethink and make sure that my dad, a carpenter from the Midwest, had the measure twice, cut once philosophy. And Lou, I think really, if we're going to make this kind of a commitment, that's exactly what we need to be doing.
Thank you for that. One of the theories that I have, or premises that I sometimes think about, is how collectively, when a governmental body looks at something, they can look at it one way, but specifically in a particular region, when those people who represent that region look at it, they could look at it quite differently. The example that I would personally use would be Army bases. Mm-hmm. It feels like collectively across the country, everybody tends to agree that we probably have too many Army bases out there, and we could probably save some money by closing them down. But then when you go specifically region by region, representative or state or U.S. senator by U.S. senator, philosophically it sounds good that you should close some Army bases. But when it comes to their particular district, well, that's the one that needs to stay open.
That's the most important one there is.
It's just amazing how that works. And the reason why I say that example is because when I use that example with the CRC, a lot of times, most of the time, at least in the past, what you would see is that collectively in the state of Washington, for example, there may be folks who say, geez, I don't want to spend money on that CRC project. But traditionally, what used to happen was the idea that the local contingent would say, hey, wait a second, this is a big project for us, it's going to mean a lot of construction jobs, it's going to modernize the interstate as well as the bridge. Yeah, there are some issues with this thing, but this is our project and we're going to get it behind it because it's our people. That, what normally might happen, obviously is not happening in this case. And I wonder if you sort of think about that a little bit.
I've spent so much time thinking about that because I think that it's my job as a senator to make sure that projects move forward, but specifically to make sure that good projects move forward. And Lou, I don't need to recount to you the myriad of issues with this project and the frustration that exists. When Ray LaHood came to see us, a fellow Chicago person, I was concerned about his tone. He actually galvanized our caucus with his tone of, fish or cut bait. We thought he came in for a dialogue about, let's make this a better project, and it wasn't. It was, this is your tar baby, deal with it. We know it's mucked up, deal with it. And I was really uncomfortable with that because I do think that this philosophy of measure twice, cut once really does apply here. Look at how long it's taken us to do this bridge, and I think on the Glen Jackson it was about 20 years before they were able to turn dirt. So we have some precedent, right? We still got a little bit of time to meet that mark. But when people are so gravely concerned and they have such a lack of trust for the information coming out of the office, and your story today about the $3 million whoops, everyone in every district has one of those stories. The overpass that when it didn't meet, right? The tolling on both the Alaska Way tunnel that they projected was going to be $400 million in revenue, and whoops, it's actually $100 million in revenue. So where does that money come from? It doesn't come from the transportation budget. That will come from the general fund budget. The very general fund budget that will be paying for education, public safety, you know, those
Right.
kinds of things. So I battle with this. I want a good project. I want to get behind something that works. But with the time period that it takes to get one of these done, we have to get it right for the next 100 years. And that doesn't mean, you know, we can talk about the 1,700 jobs that will be created in construction that are good family wage job, and our union brothers and sisters need those jobs. But what about the union brothers and sisters that work upstream of the bridge? And those companies are looking at relocating not just to Oregon, but indeed to Louisiana. Louisiana's been calling, Corpus Christi, Texas. So are we willing to let all of those jobs go so we can have 1,700, what amounts to temporary jobs? And so for me, it's trying to find a balance in all of that. And I'm a cyclist. I don't know if you knew that about me. I'm a cyclist. I've ridden my bike across that bridge. Is it scary? Yeah, it is. Would I like something better? Yeah, I would. I will tell you though, Lou, we are spending a lot of money. And I'm very concerned about the things I'm hearing out of Oregon. If this bridge really is about, as we've been told it's seismically unsound, although in the report that was completed in, I think it was 2010, it said it's safe for up to 9.0 magnitude. The reality is, at that point, everything else is falling down, so the bridge is likely the only thing that would be left standing. But if we're told it is about safety, if we're told it's about congestion reduction, and we're told it's about freight mobility, for Governor Kitzhaber to say, no light rail, no bridge, it kind of flies in the face of those things being really important to him. So to him, the most important thing is light rail. But that's not the most important thing to everyone. To me, having a bridge that's functional, that's safe, improves freight mobility. I was contacted by a trucker, a guy who owns a trucking firm, who said, I've looked at the plans for the on-ramps. He said they're 4% grade forever. He said, my trucks, I'll be replacing my transmissions, my trucks can't handle that. Who thought about that in the design? You know, Lou, if you were going to have a new house built, say you're a 6'5" man, and an architect, you hire an architect and you lay your money down and you say, I want 3 bedrooms, 3 baths, big family room. You tell him what you want, and he gets you all of those things, but he builds you 6-foot ceilings. And really, that's what's happened here. We have a 6-foot ceiling for a 6'4", 6'5" man, and really? I mean, it's like the things that make you go, I don't understand that. Say it out loud.
Okay, good. One of the things that the proponents of the bridge have been saying is that, okay, this is your shot. If you don't take this shot, money's going someplace else, and it'll likely be another decade before you get back and list. Do you buy the decade line?
Baloney. We have the single most powerful woman in the Senate, or second most powerful woman in the Senate, representing our state, and she would willingly let the money go somewhere else? Again, say it out loud.
So, with that in mind, and with the idea that potentially this thing isn't going to go anywhere in a special session this year, do you have any sense of when you think the region could get back on track to looking at a different option for an interstate bridge?
Well, I think key to it is helping the Oregonians to understand that light rail is the hang-up. I really believe that. It's the push me, pull you, you know. Yeah. So in terms of a time frame, I don't know, but I do think that there were other options out there, Lou, that did not receive full vetting, and I've seen emails from WashDOT saying as much. When I did the proviso that created the Legislative Oversight Committee, I wanted all of us to be educated on a level playing field. I wanted I wanted my colleagues to hear about the project, because really up until last year we heard basically nothing about the project. We'd seen some dog and pony shows, and we heard Identity Clark County come up and say new bridge right now, which by the way we've been hearing for about 4 years. We've been hearing that we're losing our funding for 4 years. But the reality is, in terms of the funding piece, Lou, there's no money attached to this right now. We are one of 10 or 12 people who are in line for money. Okay. So that's a different creature. But when I set up or created the proviso about the Legislative Oversight Committee, I wanted my colleagues to be educated about the project and the entirety of the project, and I wanted them to have the opportunity to hear what some of the concerns were. So for 24 hours of ODOT, WADOT, CRC, Identity Clark County, folks who I would consider proponents of the project, there was 1 hour of testimony, 1 hour of testimony from the citizenry. Okay. You know, I think that that's part of the problem with this project, that they say there was all of this public input, but you don't see any of the concerns from the public input actually addressed. And if you look at the EIS, all the concerns remain unaddressed from the EIS. Okay. So basically what they're saying is, my way or the highway, no pun intended. So, I mean, I think that we have to have a real discussion with people who want a real project that really works. I've had people on the spectrum. On the one side, I have people who say, I want an icon. I want something that will be the Golden Gate Bridge for Vancouver. And then on the other side, they say, get me some horses and a ferry and we'll drag, you know, I mean, it's just everything. But there's a huge middle ground of people who say, I have some concerns. You know, we were told that the bridge was unsafe, but by ODOT's own studies, there are 60 years of life left on that bridge. Yeah. So, you know, let's look at all the options. Let's have a really frank and candid discussion, and let's stop the name calling. Let's stop belittling people who have a different idea than us. That doesn't move anyone's ball forward. And there's, you know, there's respect to be found in every single perspective. So I just think that people are very emotionally involved in this project. And I'm not sure that that's the healthiest thing. Trying to look at the whole thing, keeping yourself above the emotion is, I think, and as diplomats, as elected officials, I think it's incumbent upon each of us, each of the electeds, to absolutely take that opinion to say, I heard what you said, I disagree with you because of this, but I still respect you as a person, it's your opinion. None of this, you know, quoting stuff that we see happen in very public places against, you know, private citizens or business people who have a differing opinion. Oh, they're just a restaurateur. Well, they're business people. They have a vested. Do we have to do that? I don't think so. So I think that that's what's going to move us forward, but we have got to take the emotion out of the room. And I think that that's a first huge step.
You've had an opportunity, I believe, to look at the details of the scientific poll that we did on the CRC. Was there anything in there that surprised you, felt like it supported your position, felt like it might not have supported your position? Any sort of overview sort of thoughts on that?
So you had Bob Moore do it, More Information. They're my favorite pollster.
Well, good.
So yeah, I mean, so that, for people who would say, oh, it was rigged or fixed,
yeah,
they are who I use in my personal business, so I have absolute faith. Actually, I felt like it supported my decision because, or my position, because I've been saying all along that that the information that we were getting on the tolling and revenue was not up to snuff. And when it came out with 76% of the people would divert, I knew that the numbers that we were receiving, we needed to have another hard look at those. Which of course, when you see bad numbers over here, then you begin to wonder, what other numbers am I not really getting the full picture of?
Right.
So it again added to cynicism for the project office. Are we really getting the best information? So the diversion rate was one piece, and then the more you educated people about the project, the less they liked it. When you talked about tolls, the less so from that point of view, it did support my position. And then I wasn't sure if I read on the crosstabs about the places that were more heavily polled than others.
From my understanding, because we specifically asked this question, is that the the scientific poll was done in a way that was equally representative of the population.
Okay.
Within the zip codes of Clark County, so it was a fair representation of the population. So obviously more calls were done in the more heavily populated areas, mm-hmm. and less otherwise. So from that standpoint, the crosstabs basically said this was an equal representation based on the population, okay. Which is what you want.
Right. Oh,
in a poll.
Yeah, you're not going to get any argument from me about that. No, I think that people are, after your story, my office was flooded with phone calls of people letting me know. But here's the other interesting thing. After Governor Inslee was down here and said, you got to be loud, you got to, I had probably 8 to 1 people call and say, no, I'm being loud, I'm following the governor's, call to action. So in my office, now I will stipulate, and you asked me this a long time ago about Jim Mueller. You said, so what do you like working with Jim? The more that I've gotten to know Jim, the more I realize what a dedicated servant he is to the people of his district. He is, and I respect him for that. And I feel like we work very well together. We'll text each other about bills. Where's this at? What's going on with this? What do I need to do? I mean, we have a very, when we work together very well. And so I don't slight him for his opinion about the bridge or any of that, because I feel that in this neck of the woods, people feel differently than they do in my neck of the woods. And here's the other thing, the other call that I got, because now I represent a huge chunk of Vancouver. So the other call that I'm getting is this. I don't care if they toll the I-5. Don't you let them toll that 205. But the problem that we have with that, Lou, is Oregon can toll. And under Lynn Peterson, who is the governor's choice for our new Department of Transportation, she sent several letters saying, toll 205, toll 205. So we know where her heart lies.
Right. What about the, because it actually surprised me a little bit, what appeared to be support for light rail in the poll?
I get calls from the most conservative folks who say, if you got to do a bridge, but don't do light rail. So I don't get any yes light rail stuff. I mean, I've gotten a couple of doctors out of Salmon Creek, and I haven't gotten any from my eastern part of my, eastern Vancouver. I've not gotten any yes light. So I don't get yes light rail stuff very often.
Okay.